Daniel Callahan. Are you there, Daniel?
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I have a prepared statement. I think most would agree that Selah is a patriotic city. Many people here display their American flags and are proud to be American. As a result, our community also cares heavily about our Constitution and the Bill of Rights attached to that Constitution. However, the city has not been nearly as cautious with their civil rights as it should be. The local chalk issue has turned into a great debate about the First Amendment, and the city itself seems to be grossly uninformed when it comes to that aspect of the issue. I had the chance to talk with a police supervisor about chalk art in regards to the First Amendment, not just an officer, a supervisor in a position of authority over other officers. He told me that the Supreme Court has just ruled that any sort of writing on government property is no longer considered free speech protected by the First Amendment anywhere in the country. This, as you may well know, is completely false. Writing on government property with chalk is allowed all over the country and only isn't protected free speech under two conditions. The city has banned such writing in municipal code, and they enforce it completely equally, regardless of content. When questioned on the accuracy of his statements, the officer responded that it was above his pay grade to know the law and have read the Supreme Court case where this was decided. According to his own words, one man, the city attorney, had given out the order that chalk on government property was not protected speech, and he was to enforce it. He said the order was given that day. Doesn't it sound like there's something wrong with that? One unelected man gave out an order, and our PD felt comfortable enough and justified enough to send out a supervisor to enforce this order. On top of all this, certain city council members have admitted that municipal code is ambiguous when it comes to whether chalk is graffiti or not. Yet our city has been enforcing it as if it were clearly graffiti. It would seem much more prudent and responsible to wait to enforce any of this until the code was explicit on whether chalk is graffiti. This approach would err on the side of civil rights to make sure nobody's freedoms of speech was infringed upon. Instead, our city has chosen to err on the side of unjustified authority, disregarding our beloved Constitution. In a city as patriotic as this, it would be disheartening to many to know that their city doesn't care about their freedoms as Americans, especially when their city administrator doesn't believe in the First Amendment, saying we don't believe city property is the appropriate place for expressing your political speech. My question is this: what is the city going to change to make sure they aren't trampling on our most beloved American values? And do you think the city is doing a satisfactory job when knowing what laws a supervisor is enforcing is above his pay grade and blindly following orders is acceptable?
Well, Rob, I'm going to let you go to the law part of it.
There's a lot packaged into that comment preceding the question. What people need to understand, and what I've tried to make plain for months now, but it seems some people either can't understand it or don't want to, is as it comes to chalk, there are two different parts of the law. There's the anti-graffiti portion of the Selah Municipal Code. That at most, as presently written, can lead to a civil fine, money, no jail time, not a crime. There's a second part of the law, however. The Selah Municipal Code adopts, among other things, the statewide statute for malicious mischief in the third degree. Thus, and that applies to any writing, drawing, or painting on public property without permission. Chalk is not excluded from the coverage of that section. Thus, as I explained to you when we met with you and others, Mr. Callahan, it's effectively to have a 50-cent understanding to $1 worth of a question to focus solely on the anti-graffiti portion of the code, as though the malicious mischief section of the code does not apply. Now, having said that, the real question, fundamental practical question, is where might someone want to use traditional chalk? And I can tell you the city's policy at present, and if this changes for enforcement priorities, we will give notice, but the city's policy at present is to not criminalize nor even seek civil penalties against people who want to use traditional chalk on sidewalks. We will still clean it up as fast as we find it. By contrast, those who want to use spray chalk or want to draw on buildings or want to use traditional chalk on streets will seek prosecution and civil penalties. It's not a question of the city changing something. Existing law already provides for that.
Would you like to address the parts of my comments where I said that a city supervisor A police department supervisor said, according to you, that any writing on government property is never free speech anywhere in the country. Would you like to address that?
I don't know
Why would he say that you said that? And a man in a position of authority over our police department, no less.
Daniel's time has concluded.
Address it. I don't know what supervisor you're referring to. I don't believe I've had any conversations with supervisors, if you're talking about public works folks or even police department people. I mean, the only people I've been speaking to at city in regard to this would be the mayor, the administrator, and some other office type folks. I mean, I've had conversations with Andrew about it, for example. But the question, the First Amendment does not give anyone a right to deface public property. That's just a plain reality.
All right, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Daniel.